Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks so much for joining us here on KXAN Live. I'm Will DuPree, coming to you for a special KXAN Live in our studio. We know that there is a lot of information and news coming today with not only the Supreme Court deciding to overturn the landmark Roe v. Wade case, there is also a presumed case of monkeypox that Austin Public Health is looking into here in Travis County. We have much more in-depth coverage available on our website right now at KXAN.com, so please check that out if you can. We did want to highlight our special project that launched this week. It's a new reporting effort called Stop Mass Shootings. And if you want to take a look right here, this is the goal of the project that we put out. As you can see, it's to provide context and explore solutions surrounding gun violence in the wake of the deadly Uvalde school shooting. We'd like our series of reports going out this week and next to be a resource for Texans, as well as lawmakers convening right now to discuss how the state should move forward. Today actually marks 1 month since a shooter went into 2 fourth-grade classrooms at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde and killed 19 children and 2 teachers with an AR-15. New details are also still emerging about law enforcement's delayed response to the deadly shooting on May 24th. We do have more detailed reporting about those new revelations that came out this week, available on KXAN.com too, so please check that out as well. But today we are working to answer some of the questions that you all have sent us about this new reporting project called Stop Mass Shootings, as we mentioned. All this week we have had our digital reporter, Grace Reeder, going through some of these questions and providing a little bit more context and picking up on some of the themes of those questions. So Grace, thank you for being here and thank you for your work.
Yeah, absolutely, Will.
Let's start with what we're seeing pop up a lot. Many people are asking about school safety, or this idea known as school hardening. So what are people really bringing up in those conversations since we had this project launched this week?
Sure, so we'll end on school hardening, but I will let people know how we sort of got to this point. When we put this call out, we compiled all of the questions and comments that people had posted, and then we put them in an Excel spreadsheet and organized it so that keywords were popping up, and we were able to really see the themes and the things that people were interested in or curious about, and they sort of fell into 3 categories, which we'll all touch on today. Obviously, gun legislation and gun reform was a big one that people were talking about. Mental health is another one that people were asking about, and then finally this school safety issue that you're talking about right now. And a lot of people really wanted to know what can be done inside schools. We've heard Republican lawmakers here in Texas talk a lot about having one point of entry into a school. People have been asking about the viability of that. Additionally, people are asking about things like metal detectors, things other school districts around the country, what they're doing to protect students should they end up in a situation like this.
We also heard from people about this new school bond that is being considered by Austin ISD. It really highlights just how expensive some of the school hardening and school safety efforts are, and Austin is considering asking voters out there to approve a $1.5 billion bond. Our Sally Hernandez looked at this particular issue and how Austin got to this point and what it's doing in the process to look into school safety. So if you'd like to review that report, it's available right now on our website too. But any other questions that popped up about school safety, Grace?
Mostly people are wanting to know specifically what can be done, and Sally did a really good job of highlighting what local school districts are trying to do to make that happen. But like you said, it's expensive. This is a significant amount of money, and so I think people are really sort of asking about the logistics of that, and Sally's report covers that well.
Our second topic that really popped up from a lot of questions that came in from people out there was about legislation that could be addressed to try to stop mass shootings in the future. Governor Greg Abbott has so far resisted calls that some have said that a legislative session is needed. He has instead called special committees to look into policy recommendations. What are people wondering about, though, when it comes to policy?
I think people are really frustrated, and we're seeing questions on both sides that are pretty either or. So we saw a lot of comments from people saying that guns need to be banned, and then on the other side saying that more guns needed to be added to schools, that those school safety zones, those gun-free zones in schools need to go away. And so a lot of people in our comments section, frankly, were fighting about where we go with guns, and obviously we know the big news nationally today is that there was a gun legislation passed that will be headed to President Biden's desk, and President Biden has said that he will pass that through. Some of the details of that package include incentivizing red flag laws for states who don't already have them. As you know, likely Texas does not have a red flag law rather, but other conservative states like Florida do, and so that's something certainly that we're going to be talking about moving forward. And there were some other fixes to loopholes in gun legislation in that national legislation as well. So that's certainly something that we're going to be focusing on and adding to our reports, is the impact of that on Texas. But here locally, we've also been following the hearings that have been happening in the Senate committees this week. And Will, I know that you were sitting in on a lot of those.
Yeah, they did. They talked particularly about some of these proposals, mostly brought by state Democrats, about potentially raising the age to buy certain guns from 18 to 21. Were people wondering about maybe why that age in particular? Why raise it from 18 to 21?
Yeah, we did have a question about that. People were asking, well, where does this age come from? And of course, you have sort of that gap there. 18, the age that people can enter the military and that they're legally an adult. 21, the legal age to drink. But what lawmakers have done in other states is raise the age to buy a firearm to that 21 mark, in the hopes that these folks' brains will be able to develop enough to be able to responsibly own a gun, and we have seen that again in other conservative states such as Florida.
Another question that's come up from a lot of people is about the culture here in America, about guns in itself, and after mass shootings, what changes? So our Tom Miller actually looked at how other countries have enacted policies after mass shootings of their own, and we want to show you that story now and continue our conversation right afterwards, so please stay with us.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed.
Let's try it now. Should be a micro little dot now.
Yeah, the Second Amendment means I have the right to own and carry weapons.
Protection, protection for my family.
Ratified into law in 1791, the Second Amendment has been shaping American culture for more than 230 years.
The Second Amendment is all about protecting the rights of a collective people to rise up against a tyrannical government.
University of Texas law professor Sanford Levinson both studies and teaches constitutional law.
My own view of the Second Amendment is that it has almost nothing to do with individual self-defense.
Americans own 393 million guns. That breaks down to 1.2 guns a person. It's more guns than the other top 25 countries combined. In 2020, 19,384 homicides in the U.S. involved guns. So far this year, there have been 27 shootings on school campuses, killing or injuring 83 people. In America, despite new laws after mass shootings, they keep happening. Our neighbors overseas tried a different approach with a different outcome.
The reaction in Scotland, the reaction in the whole of Britain, was one of absolute horror.
In 1996, Britain saw its worst school shooting. A shooter armed with 4 handguns killed a teacher and 16 children in the small town of Dunblane, Scotland. That day, Mick North lost his 5-year-old daughter Sophie just 18 months after losing his wife.
The first reaction, it was mostly one of numbness. I mean, just not understanding what had happened, not understanding that, this person who I'd shared the previous 18 months with entirely was just not there anymore.
Unlike in the U.S., Britain does not guarantee its citizens the right to bear arms. Within a year of the Dunblane shooting, North and others successfully lobbied British lawmakers to ban all handguns in the UK.
Despite the grief we were going through, it was important to continue to remind people what happened until something changed.
The laws changed in 1997. There hasn't been a mass school shooting since. In the UK, there's fewer than 1 gun per every 20 people. In a 12-month period from 2020 to 2021 in the UK, a place with a population of about 67 million, shootings killed just 38 people. Again, in 2020 in the U.S., with our population of 329 million, roughly 5 times the size of the U.K., guns killed more than 19,000 people. For these gun control activists who visited Senator John Cornyn's Austin office earlier this month, the drastic action taken overseas serves as both inspiration and a reminder of the differences in our cultures.
When we see what happens in other countries, we see that the laws do work. The difference in America is the easy access to guns.
Professor Levinson says the change made in the UK isn't likely here.
A ban on handguns, no. That is not in the future. I see no circumstances where public opinion would move really to support that.
A reality in a country where guns are woven into the fabric of our founding. In Austin, Tom Miller, KXAN News.
If anyone else would like to read a little bit more in depth about that story, Grace, you mentioned that there are other countries mentioned in that piece that's available on KXAN.com.
It is Kelsey Thompson, one of our other digital reporters, worked with Tom Miller on that story, and so we've got more over at KXAN.com that you didn't get to see in that.
Yeah, so we'll ask you all, please go there and check that story out. We are again here with digital reporter Grace Reeder, and she's been going through a lot of questions that people have sent us about our new reporting effort called Stop Mass Shootings, and some of the themes that have popped up in those questions. We talked about school safety and questions about that, as well as gun reforms and legislation. And one other thing that really kept coming up in what you saw people sent us was about video games.
Yeah, I was surprised by this, but video games was one of those topics that kept bubbling to the top, and specifically people were talking about video games in relation to mental health. So we saw a lot of questions about, is mental health really a problem here, and what role do drugs and video games play? And video games is something that has been heavily researched and something that has been talked about for decades now in the wake of mass shootings. And so what we did was we went and looked at data from the National Institute of Justice, and we looked through every single mass shooter since 1992, and then we also went and talked to the folks that are doing the research on this, and so we will show you that first. There is significant research that shows video games and violent media do not cause mental health illnesses.
It is as simple as that.
That's according to a Texas State journalism professor who has done research on the role of media in video games and violent behavior. We asked him to weigh in on questions we got from KXAN viewers following the Uvalde shooting.
What my colleagues and I found is that media violence, including video games, will not make well people psychologically ill. They will make psychologically ill people engage in behaviors that are destructive to themselves and to the society within which they live.
But a child psychologist and UT Austin professor also told us
very, very few people who have mental health problems commit any kind of violent crimes.
It begs the question if research overwhelmingly shows violent video games do not create mental health illnesses, and that people with mental health illnesses are largely victims and not perpetrators. Why do the conversations surrounding solutions to mass violence often involve the role of video games?
It's known as the third-person effect. Video games aren't going to harm me. They're not going to harm you because I know you well. But they're going to harm those unknown, unnamed third people out there.
The mounds of information gathered by this researcher and others shows for people who are mentally well, that doesn't appear to be the case.
Very interesting story there, and especially hearing from those two experts who are really looking into this particular concern.
Right, and I do want to quickly dive into, we sort of teased that data from the National Institute of Justice, but I do want to talk about what we found there. So our Investigates team went through all 136 mass shootings since 1992, and 26 of those mass shooters in that time were found to have played violent video games. So to give you an idea, that's roughly 19%. And to further that, among those who did play video games, we found that 22 of those 26 had a diagnosed mental health illness or were presumed to have a psychiatric disorder that was undiagnosed.
Very, very interesting there. And again, you can read more in depth on Grace's report about video games and the concerns about violent media on KXAN.com. Another story that you have that we want to bring up, and it caught a lot of people's attention, and there's a phrase that has gone around a lot after the Uvalde school shooting, and that's the term assault rifle. What did you look into?
Right, so we always hear that assault weapon phrase and assault rifle, and something that, as I have been reporting on mass violence now for a while, I've found is that people really don't understand what those words mean. And so what we did in this story, and I encourage you to go to KXAN.com and sort of read it if you are confused about this, but frankly, assault weapons is a political term that has been sort of created, and it doesn't have a definition except in legislation. So we've seen, for example, in previous assault weapons bans, as in 1994, they defined specifically which weapons were included in that ban, but this term assault weapon doesn't really technically mean anything. Meanwhile, we keep hearing assault rifle as well, and there is a definition for assault rifles from the Army, the NRA. All kinds of gun groups have had a defined assault rifle definition for a long time, and what they define an assault rifle is as an automatic military-style weapon. And that's where I see people get the most confused, is because they're hearing AR-15s be called automatic or assault rifles, and they're not. AR-15s are semi-automatic rifles. The difference there being that you pull the trigger, it fires one time. With an automatic weapon, you hold it down and it fires repeatedly. And so people are getting lost in the language, and that's why we put that report out, is to specifically make it clear to people when we're talking about gun legislation specifically, the words and the definitions do matter.
Very, very helpful resource there. I learned something for sure, because again, you hear that phrase a lot come up after these shootings happen. So that was very, very good reporting and a good resource for people out there. So please check that out too. I mean, we're highlighting all these different stories that are a part of our Stop Mass Shootings series, and there are more reports to come with this, but you can find that all on our website right now. And in the bottom of this graphic here, it says the direct link that you can go to and find all of our reports, as well as specialized sections regarding mental health and school safety and the like. So I'll just direct you there. But digital reporter Grace Reeder, thank you for being here and going through all those questions that people have. I know that you're going to keep on it.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody. Thank you, Grace, and thank you all for watching here this afternoon. I'm Will DuPree in the KXAN Live Studio. We'll see you back here at another time, everybody. Please stay safe and healthy today and this weekend. Take care, everybody.